This is Capital Logic. Today we are breaking down the Google AdWords bet, how a $1 billion idea almost didn't happen. If this is your first time here, subscribe and hit the like button. It helps us keep making these breakdowns. Let's get into it. Google's most profitable product, AdWords, was so controversial internally that its creators had to fight tooth and nail to prevent it from being shut down. It's a story of internal battles, a massive bet, and how a $1 billion idea almost didn't happen. Stay until the end. I'll break down 3 lessons from Google's playbook you can apply to your business this week. If you want business breakdowns you can actually use, hit subscribe and the bell. In 1999, Google was a phenomenon. Its search engine was fast, clean, and delivered results with an uncanny accuracy that left competitors in the dust. But behind the scenes, a fundamental question loomed over its very existence. How was this technological marvel going to make money? You see, the company's co-founders, Larry Page and Sergey Brin, were staunchly, almost ideologically, opposed to advertising. They believed, quite genuinely, that ads would degrade the user experience, clutter the pristine search results, and ultimately compromise the objectivity that made Google so revolutionary. Larry Page famously declared, "We don't want to be an advertising company." This wasn't just a casual remark. It was a deeply held conviction that permeated the early culture of Google. Their vision was a pure, unadulterated information retrieval system, free from the commercial pressures that often tainted other online ventures. And for a time, they stuck to that principle. Google's initial revenue streams were modest, to say the least. In 1998, the company brought in approximately $220,000. This wasn't from advertising, but primarily from licensing its search technology to other portals. Like Yahoo, their business model was built on selling search appliance hardware and licensing their index to essentially selling the tools, not the eyeballs. But here's the thing. Even with a groundbreaking product, a company needs to pay the bills. By 1999, Google had grown to 40 employees, and they were burning through venture capital at an alarming rate. The clock was ticking. The dream of a pure, ad-free search engine was colliding head-on with the harsh realities of financial viability. The question wasn't if they needed a revenue strategy, but what kind of revenue strategy could possibly align with their deeply held principles. It was a classic entrepreneurial dilemma. How do you balance your core mission and user experience with the undeniable need for growth and profit? Despite the founders' fervent objections, the financial pressures became too great to ignore. The company needed a lifeline, and some within Google believed advertising, if done right, could be that lifeline. So, against the strong opposition, particularly from Larry Page, who reportedly called early ad systems crap, a risky bet was made. On October 23, 2000, this wasn't some grand, fully formed vision. Far from it. It started small, with just 350 initial customers. And the model itself was rudimentary. Advertisers paid a flat monthly fee of $100 for text ads, regardless of how many people saw them, clicked them, or how well they performed. It was simple, yes, but it was also profoundly unsustainable. There was no direct correlation between the advertisers' spend and the value they received. Larry Page's crap assessment wasn't far off the mark for this initial iteration. But what's fascinating is that even as the founders resisted, the groundwork for a more sophisticated advertising system was already being laid. In 1999, the same year Page and Brin were expressing their anti-ad sentiment, Google quietly filed a patent. U.S. patent number 6,269,361, titled System and Method for Targeting Advertisements. This patent, filed by Google engineers, laid the conceptual groundwork for contextual advertising to ads that were relevant to the search query. It was a quiet acknowledgement that, despite the internal debate, the potential for a powerful, integrated ad system was there, waiting to be unlocked. The early AdWords system was a proof of concept, a necessary first step. But it was clear it needed a radical overhaul. The flat fee model was a dead end. What was needed was a system that aligned the interests of the advertiser, the user, and Google itself. The breakthrough came in 2002, a pivotal year that would redefine not just Google's revenue model, but the entire landscape of online advertising. This was when Google introduced 2 game-changing innovations. First, they replaced the flat fee model with a cost per click, or CPC, model. Instead of paying a fixed amount, advertisers would now only pay when someone actually clicked on their ad. This was a monumental shift. It directly aligned advertiser spend with user engagement, ensuring that businesses only paid for tangible interest. It was a revelation for advertisers, offering a clear, measurable return on investment. But the true genius, the secret sauce that would eventually make Google an advertising behemoth, was the introduction of the quality score algorithm. This wasn't just about who bid the most money. Google's system would now factor in click-through rates and ad relevance. Was the ad actually useful to the person searching? Did it lead to a good user experience on a landing page? The higher the quality score, the better the ad's placement, often at a lower cost per click. This meant that a highly relevant, well-performing ad could outrank a higher bidding but less relevant ad. This was revolutionary. It meant Google wasn't just selling ad space, it was selling relevance. It was a brilliant, counterintuitive move that addressed the founders' original concerns head-on. By prioritizing user experience and ad quality, Google could integrate advertising without degrading its core product. Hal Varian, Google's chief economist, played a pivotal role in developing this auction-based model, providing the economic principles that underpinned its success. The results were immediate and staggering. In 2001, Google's total revenue was $86 million. Just 1 year later, in 2002, largely driven by the success of the new AdWords model, that figure soared to $347 million. AdWords alone was generating approximately $100 million in annual revenue. This wasn't just growth, this was an explosion. Google had found its golden goose, a revenue engine that not only worked, but thrived on the very principles of relevance and user value that its founders had initially championed. The transformation was complete. From a company struggling to monetize its groundbreaking search engine, Google was now on a trajectory to become an advertising powerhouse. But the story doesn't end with AdWords. Not even close. The true genius, the real leverage, came from understanding that this wasn't just about Google's own search results. It was about a fundamental shift in how any digital content could be monetized. By 2002, just 2 years after its launch, AdWords was already generating approximately $100 million in annual revenue. A remarkable turnaround from the flat-fee crap system Larry Page had once dismissed. Google's total revenue surged from $86 million in 2001 to $347 million in 2002, a nearly four-fold increase, almost entirely fueled by this advertising engine. The internal resistance had been overcome by undeniable results. The data spoke for itself. Ads, when done right, weren't degrading the user experience. They were enhancing it by providing relevant information at the moment of need. This success, however, sparked an even more ambitious idea. What if Google could extend this contextual advertising model beyond its own pages? What if it could power the revenue of millions of other websites, big and small, across the internet? This was the genesis of AdSense. AdSense, famously born from Google's 20% time policy to where employees could dedicate a fifth of their work week to passion projects, launched in 2003. It was a stroke of strategic brilliance. Instead of just selling ads on Google, AdSense allowed Google to act as a broker, placing relevant ads from its vast network of advertisers on third-party websites. If you've ever visited a blog or news site and seen ads that seem eerily tailored to your interests, that's AdSense at work. This wasn't just a new product, it was an entirely new paradigm. Google wasn't just a search engine anymore. It was becoming the backbone of the internet's economy. Publishers, from individual bloggers to major news outlets, could now monetize their content without the hassle of finding advertisers themselves. Google handled the targeting, the bidding, the payments to everything. And in return, Google took a cut. The impact was immediate and profound. By 2004, advertising accounted for over 98% of Google's revenue. Think about that for a moment. A company whose founders vehemently opposed advertising just 5 years prior was now almost entirely an advertising company. The initial fear that ads would compromise objectivity had been assuaged by the sheer effectiveness and relevance of the system. Hal Varian's economic principles, combined with Google's engineering prowess, had created a self-reinforcing loop. Better ads meant more clicks. More clicks meant more revenue for Google and its partners. And more revenue meant more investment in making the ads even better. This exponential growth trajectory culminated in one of the most anticipated financial events of the decade, Google's IPO in August 2004. The company, once a scrappy startup burning through venture capital, went public with a valuation of $23 billion. And what was the primary driver of that staggering valuation? You guessed it, Its advertising revenue. In 2004 alone, Google reported total revenues of $3.189 billion, with an astonishing $3.16 billion to 99.1% to coming directly from advertising. The operating margin, largely fueled by this highly profitable ad business, stood at a robust 27.5%. The bet had paid off, not just in millions but in billions.